Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon. This is the Bridges and Tunnels Committee. Do we have any public speakers? Mr. Bowden.
Good morning. I was at the Port Authority meeting last Thursday, and as a result of the traffic fiasco at LaGuardia a few weeks ago, they had a consultant there describing what they would do to alleviate it, and it was a little bit not as good a representation. And I spoke to them, and I pointed out that some things that they could do to alleviate traffic in road lines and in signs. And it has been directed that the lines be changed in such a manner to make them better for the driver. I've been working with your staff here, and they're excellent, and they are going to work to bring their lines in coordination with what will be at LaGuardia. And when LaGuardia is done, then they will find out it works really good, and so they'll do JFK and Newark. And the MTA will be in step with them. It will have a consistent legal, as in the manual, a set of lines that drivers will know wherever they go in the metropolitan area. It will be the same. Tomorrow I'll be in New Jersey at the Turnpike and ask them, or tell them that what you're doing here, and suggest that they follow it. Whether they do or not, I don't know. And on next week I'll be in Albany at the Thruway Board meeting, suggesting they also follow what you and the Port Authority will be doing correctly. The only problem is New York State DOT. I do not know how to reach them and bring them up to speed. And they're in charge of that book that's got a lot of errors in it. And so I'm not sure how somebody's going to get to New York State DOT. The information that I sent out to you, there were at least 50 blind copies, and probably before it gets sent around to the office, 100 people will have read it. And there has been zero, as in none, negative comments on saying that anything I've done or suggested is not 100% correct within the manual as it is currently written. I understand that what I'm saying here is now part of the public record. There's a camera up there taking pictures of me. And so the going forward and correcting something that's been done haphazardly over the years is a major step in safety and economics. And so I thank Bridge and Tunnel for working so carefully with me and listening so carefully and being right up to snuff in getting things done to make the roads safer for our area. So thank you, Jim, for your staff. They're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Donald.
Any more? I guess the first order of business is the minutes, which are reproduced in the book. Can I have a motion to adopt, or unless someone has a correction?
So moved.
Done. I guess, are there any changes to the work
There are
plan?
no changes, Commissioner, to the work plan.
All right. Then I guess it's time for you
Right.
to report.
Okay, we'll start with our operations report. Jim Fortunato.
Good afternoon. The report on operations begins on page 17. We will be reporting on June and July 2016. Traffic was higher in June with 27.3 million crossings as compared with 26.1 million crossings in June of 2015. This represents a 4.3% increase. Traffic was higher in July with 27.3 million crossings as compared with 26.9 million crossings in July of 2015. This represents a 1.3% increase. Rainfall amounts in June of 2015 totaled 2.2 inches over 9 days versus 4.8 inches over 12 days in June of 2015, and rainfall amounts in 2016 totaled in July of 2016 totaled 5.0 inches over 12 days versus 3.5 inches over 8 days in July of 2015. Easy Pass volume increased by 5.2% in June of 2016 as compared to June of 2015, while crossings using cash and other payments methods declined by 0.8% for the month. Passenger car travel was up 4.6%, and other vehicle travel was up 0.5% from June of 2015. Easy Pass volume increased by 1.8% in July of 2016 as compared to July of 2015, while crossings using cash and other payment methods declined by 1.3% for the month. Passenger car travel was up 1.9%, and other vehicle travel was down 7.0% from July of 2015. Preliminary monthly traffic figures for August of 2016 are 1.2% more than the same period in 2015. Labor Day holiday weekend traffic Friday through Monday was down 2.4% less than holiday weekend travel last year. The decrease in traffic was caused by the precautions taken from possible extreme weather conditions from Tropical Storm Hermine. This ends the report on operations. If there are any questions,
Are you also dealing with the customer environment section?
We'll do
Yes,
that
we'll-
next. Pat Parisi will take care.
The customer environment survey begins on page 43, and some highlights for the second quarter are B&T striped 164,577 linear feet of roadway in the second quarter of 2016. B&T repaired 892 potholes in the second quarter. B&T swept 3,225 lane miles of roadway at its bridges and tunnels in the second quarter of 2016, a 21% increase over the same period in 2015. 89.9% of B&T's more than 7,500 roadway, aviation, navigation, and necklace lights were operational in the second quarter, nearly identical as compared to the same period in 2015. B&T maintained and cleaned 871 storm drains in the second quarter of 2016. Easy Pass toll lane availability remained extremely high at over 99% for the second quarter. That would be the end of the customer environment survey.
Let me ask, I'm sorry, does anybody have a question? Let me ask a question, if I may. The number of collisions has increased by approximately 20 to 25% on the bridges. Have you gotten any sense as to why there is this increase?
A lot of the collisions, it's rear-end type collisions, failure to, and we do have a breakup in there. But with the increased traffic and the density on the roadways now, we're seeing more. It's more for some facilities than others. And what we're doing is redirecting a lot of our law enforcement personnel.
Well, let me focus on something which may be helpful. There has been a lot of discussion over the years of lines and whether lines are painted and the like. The new automobiles now have a technological installation that when you hit that line, even though it's a painted line in the street, it slows the car down and moves you to the side. From that, I draw two conclusions. One, it's important that we do what we have to do to make sure those lines are appropriate and are done. And number two, a question as to whether or not that can help us deal with these problems of at least the side swiping.
Yes. And that's why we try to keep up with that striping program of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of feet of striping every year. But you're right, we have some areas that it's temporary during construction, so it's being moved as the stages move along. But at the end of that project, they come back to...
And is that something that is consistent with the various patterns of lines that are recommended in various manuals and the like?
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Who's the next?
Okay, the safety report, Pashko.
Good afternoon. This month's work plan includes safety reports for both June and July, as shown on pages 53 through 56. However, for expediency, I will only highlight the July report, but if there are any questions for June or July, feel free to ask them and I'll answer them. The report on safety for the month of July is illustrated on page 55, in which we continue to highlight our most important lagging and leading indicators, as shown in the bottom and top tables. The report includes 12-month rolling averages and highlights the following performance indicators: customer collisions with injuries, employee accident reports, employee lost time injuries, and lastly, contractor injuries. The customer collision rate for this 12-month reporting period increased from 5.74 to 6.80, and the rate for injury collisions increased slightly from 0.91 to 1.04 injuries per million vehicle crossings. During the same reporting period, the total number of reported employee accidents increased slightly from 249 to 266 total cases, and the rate for the lost time injuries increased from 5.0 to 6.3. Finally, the contractor lost time injury rate dropped significantly from 3.47 to 1.75, which represents a decrease of almost 50%. In terms of our leading indicators shown in the bottom table, we continue to meet our set goals. Unless there are questions or comments, that concludes my report on safety.
Ms. Vanderpoel? I have it. What specifically are we doing to try and minimize these collisions, number one? And two, are they predominantly on one or another bridge or tunnel?
I'll take it. Well, they are mainly on the suspended spans. The minor facilities hardly have any accidents on them. And we do have our law enforcement redirected to aggressive driver enforcement and speed enforcement and truck enforcement. A lot of these accidents are very minor. There's side swipes, rear ends, driver inattention. And we have a program where we actually review every 6 months. We review every accident that occurred and see if there's any kind of a pattern, and then we would redirect the enforcement teams to where the higher accident places are.
Any serious accident,
Any
we review
serious
right away.
accidents,
We don't
yeah.
wait 6 months.
Oh,
Any
serious accidents, we move right away. But
Is it more, does it occur more on any one bridge than another?
no, well, of course, the bridges with the higher amount of traffic, like the Verrazano Narrows and the RFK, they have more accidents than the other bridges, because the volume is a lot greater.
Following too closely, as in the chart from the customer environment, is the leading.
Would signposting serve any
We
purpose?
do.
Yeah.
We try to keep the.
In our review, we look at all factors involved with, with what we call like a accident-prone location or a high accident area, and we review the signage, and we've gone through mostly all of the signage and striping and any environmental issues or lighting issues, and most of these are coming up to, driver error. Because they're very low-speed accidents. They're very, very rare that you get a huge injury. Like, most of them are like just minor injuries that people are just going to get checked. Any major accidents get an immediate investigation.
Can I add something to it? Just to put it in perspective, we have approximately 900,000 vehicles cross our bridges on a regular day, on a given day. So that means about 5 or 6 accidents a day, which is at all 9 facilities. And one of those 5 or 6 accidents will actually result in an injury to a motorist.
But you have a second negative, and that is when you have the accident, you have a delay and the traffic builds up and the like. And I know that you folks are policing this, but it seems to me that when you have an increase of this magnitude, you might want to take just another additional look.
No, you're right.
If we have enough signage, if we have enough things that call it to people's attention.
Point well taken. We'll continue to look at every
No,
possible.
we will definitely do that.
Easy Pass?
Okay, the Easy Pass report, like the finance report that follows, contains the June and July reports both. We'll focus on July, but let us know if you have any questions about the June reports as well. The July Easy Pass report begins on page 63. Our Easy Pass market share was 84.4% in July, up 0.4 percentage points from the year before. More than 27,800 Easy Pass accounts were opened in July, including more than 13,500 on-the-go accounts, which is almost half of the total. And as we've discussed, these on-the-go numbers are being driven by the in-lane tag sales, and we're now over 850,000 on-the-go tags sold in the lane since the program began. And
The only question I would have, and I'm sorry, do you have a question? The only question I would have here is the following.
Okay.
When people either lose their Easy Pass or there's a problem of any kind, trying to get those folk on the phone is a Herculean, if not impossible, task. Trying to do it on the internet is virtually guaranteed to fail. Do we have any control over that process?
Well, we manage the back office. I mean, it's run by a third party, as you know, by Xerox, and we do keep track of travel time, of phone waiting time. The internet, we don't. I'm not sure we get the same kind of statistics on the internet that we do on the waiting time on the phone. But I mean, I don't think we've seen a big spike lately in the phone waiting time. But obviously, there are peaks and valleys throughout the day. It depends on when you call, generally, things like that. But
you're on it.
Yeah, we get monthly performance statistics from them, quite detailed.
Because all you have to do is just have one problem with the Easy Pass and watch how you go round and round and round trying to get those folks at Easy Pass. It isn't easy.
Yeah, it's one of the voice response systems, so they try to take care of as much without talking to somebody. But like a lot of things, you have to talk to somebody. It might take longer.
Yep.
Have you collected any data that explains some of the factors or the contributing factors that impact Easy Pass utilization? So, for example, why on RFK it's less than 80%, but then on Henry Hudson it's almost 95%? What are some of the
Yeah, we've
factors
done market research and focus groups over the years, and a lot of it is based on the population in the vicinity of the facilities. For the RFK Bronx and the Whitestone, for example, it's kind of a more transient population. They may not have a credit card, so they may be more hesitant to sign up. I mean, we've taken steps actually to help them if they want to replenish their accounts by cash, as we've discussed, and it's actually gone up quite a bit. I mean, a couple of years ago, it was actually in the 50s on weekends. So we have made a lot of progress, but yeah, we definitely would like to get it up into that 90% range everywhere, like it is on the Hudson and the two tunnels. Okay, the financial report, Mildred Truar, our CFO, will walk you through that.
Yes, good afternoon. The financial report for July begins on page 83. Starting this month, we would like to point out that we are comparing results against the July mid-year forecast, which was presented to the Finance Committee by headquarters during the last board cycle. Let me start with toll revenues. Through July, we were at $1.078 billion, which is 0.1% or $1.04 million better than planned. Our traffic is up 0.3% against the budget year to date. Preliminary August numbers are looking very good. Revenue is up $2.37 million or 1.4% against the budget. Correspondingly, traffic is also up 1.9% against the July plan. Year-to-year traffic was up 1.3% in July, and for the month of June, as Jim mentioned, it was up 4.3%. Preliminary August figures are showing an increase of approximately 1.2%. For expenses, our total expenses were about $264.3 million through July, which is approximately $10.8 million or 3.9% lower than planned. Non-labor costs were 4% less than planned, or $5 million, and this is primarily due to timing of expenses. On the labor side, our costs were lower as well by about $5.8 million, or 3.8%, which is primarily due to payroll vacancies. Our overtime is down 5.7% against plan, which is almost $840,000. Our support to mass transit was more than $666.2 million through July, which is more than $21.6 million, or 3.4% better than planned. In our mid-year forecast, we are projecting almost $1.037 billion in 2016 for our support to mass transit, which is more than $41.9 million higher than was projected in the adopted budget. This concludes the financial report. Thank you.
let me just emphasize one thing, have you emphasize it. You generate a significant amount of money which then is deployed to help mass transit, correct?
Yep.
How much in the last report?
Well, it was over $1 billion last year.
Over $1 billion is generated by you folks and the work you do at the bridges. Thank you.
More people, more riders, the better.
Yep. Mid-year forecast.
Yeah, but the book contains the monthly allocation first, which simply allocates the July financial plan for revenue expenses across the year, and which we'll be reporting on through most of the rest of the year. And it also includes the preliminary budget, which, as Mildred said, was presented by headquarters at the July Finance Committee. It's in the book for your information if you have any questions. So if there are no questions on those two items, we'll move to the capital report, capital program project status report.
Good afternoon. The report on the capital program includes both July and August reports. Reports can be found on pages 107 and 122 of the book. In July and August, there were 12 commitments made in the amount of $22.2 million. Through August, 56 commitments have been made with a value of $92.8 million. This compares to a plan calling for 60 commitments and a value of $92.2 million. Overall, through August, $92.8 million in commitments were made, which represents 61% of our $151.8 million in annual commitment plan. Major commitments made in July and August were for both for design awards for the reconstruction of Verrazano Narrows Bridge approach ramps and the design for structural rehab of the Throgs Neck Bridge approach viaducts. There were no project completion made in July or August. Year to date, we've had 6 project completions in the amount of $78.6 million, and this represents 53.4% of our total annual project completion plan that calls for 10 project completions in the amount of $146.4 million. There were 15 task closeouts in July and August in the amount of $46.2 million. And year-to-date, there have been 82 task closeouts totaling $130.9 million. Unless there are any questions, that concludes the report.
Questions? I have one. To what extent can you, should you, do you control third-party contractors parking alongside the bridge at times when they are not actively working on them? So, for example, on the RFK coming from Queens to the Bronx and Manhattan, on the right-hand side, you've taken down a ramp, but you've got a whole bunch of trucks parked there. On the Henry Hudson Bridge, it's a common event. Going north, they're parked on the left-hand side. To what extent, if any, can you control that? Should you control that? Do you control that?
In general, if the lane is closed, 24/7, a permanent closure, and the contractor has access to the lane, they are entitled to have their work vehicles. They are not private vehicles, but they're work vehicles. So parking of private vehicles is prohibited.
That's what was there. So I would suggest if you get a chance, you take a good hard look at that.
Sure.
All right?
Will do. Thank you.
What's next?
Procurements are next.
Procurements.
Gavin.
Good afternoon. Procurements start on page 137. There are no non-competitive procurements or ratifications. There is one competitive procurement, which is a modification to increase the ceiling amount for personal service contracts under our as-needed consultant contracts for miscellaneous inspection and design, expert engineering, and engineering support services, in a not-to-exceed aggregate amount of $12 million for all firms, until such time as our new competitive procurement is awarded. Unless there are any questions, this procurement is described in the enclosed staff summary.
Page 143 of the book, Bechtel. Parsons Brinckerhoff STV. Significant adverse indicators were present there. The paragraphs relating to it tell you very little other than it happened. Other than the big dig, what happened? The big dig was the Boston issue that we discussed at a prior meeting.
With STV, well,
Actually, I believe that if you would like detailed information with respect to the individual instances of, I'll start over. To the extent you would like detailed information about the underlying events that constitute significant adverse information.
To the extent that they are public, I think the board members are entitled to it in order to discharge their fiduciary obligations. And we have gotten it at every preceding meeting. To the extent they are public, I'm asking you to disclose it.
Gavin?
yeah.
Do you know what is public and what is not public? We didn't
You
vet it
should.
for that.
You should.
Well, we can talk, I mean, I can briefly go over STV had issues.
Is it the big dig, or is it anything else?
There was some other issue other
Were there
than
any
Big Dick.
criminal acts?
No, this was one where it was not criminal, it was against a joint venture of which STV was a minority.
This is the insider trading stuff?
Based upon a 2004 complaint.
There were no criminal ones or any ones involving morality or ethics involved. Am I correct?
We've looked, yes, I agree. We've looked at the historical information. We've looked again for anything new. Nothing new has occurred since we looked. We've looked at their performance on our current contracts, how they're doing. They are performing
No conviction.
satisfactorily, and we've vetted these through the
And you are
MTA General
persuaded
Counsel.
they are responsible?
We are.
And the chairman has signed
Yes,
up,
he has.
correct? Anything else? Any other business?
Yeah, we need a motion.
Motion to approve? Aye.
Okay,
Done.
the final item is a diversity report. Sean Moore.
Good afternoon. MTA Bridges and Tunnel Diversity Report is for the second quarter as of June 30th, 2016, pages 144 through 152. The strategies to improve workforce diversity will be presented by our president this afternoon at the MTA Diversity Committee, and that's on pages 145 to 149. Our new hires on 150 between January 1 and January 30, 2016. MTA Bridges and Tunnel increased the number of new hires from 36 to 58 in comparison to second quarter of 2015. That represented 20% females and 50% minorities. The new hires resulted in a favorable impact on the service maintenance job category, which increased the number of Hispanics to 23% and blacks to 27% in comparison to 2015, where we hired 5% of Hispanics and 14% blacks. The EEO and Title VI complaints is on pages 151 to 152. Our current caseload is 22 EEO complaints, 5 external, 17 internals. We have closed out 1 external complaint and 3 internal complaints. We have no reported Title VI complaints. And that concludes MTA Bridges and Tunnel EEO report, unless there are any questions.
I congratulate you on your detailed report on it. Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Motion to adjourn? Done. That's pretty good.